Yo, I remember back in the day when I heard the truth for the first time. I couldn't believe my ears. So I went in to study and disprove it. And I saw that the Most High was serious. It was like it's like the scales fell off my eyes. Like, yo, he's talking about me. This whole time he was talking about me. I didn't know. So I have to give you more praise, honor, and glory that's due unto his name. Praise Yah, Yahweh Ba, Shema Mashiach, Yahweh Shah. We let Yahweh reign. Yo, this wicked world, the love is lost. We preach Yahweh, they shrug us off. These haters, yo, got they pastors walk. When it was you he's talking to who broke the master's laws. What was the cause? Why was I worth it? I pray y'all give me strength to fight, cause I ain't nothing perfect. I got enough pent up inside to rise above the surface. I got a savior by my side, but y'all don't deserve it. And no joke, I mean, everybody thought I was crazy when I was telling the truth. When I started quoting scriptures and telling them, yo, this is talking about us, they didn't know how to take it. They didn't know what to do about it. You know what I'm saying? Sort of like how Paul said, if I become your enemy by telling you the truth, so be it. For Yah so love is chosen, he gave his son to save him. So I'ma praise him, raise him fast and pray till something changes. I will it in, I'm flipping past a couple pages. He says we win, I'm holding fast this revelation. Is they gon' hate me then if I don't walk the path of Satan? Is that gon' make me bend if all my friends is laughing, hating? What if I drop my sin, repent to Yah and turn to Christ?
Yah let you win, bless you with eternal life.
How do I shake the shame? Heed to the master's call. Won't take me out the game, even if I drop the ball. Online on blocks and malls, I gotta speak to reach you. The living water, bread of life, and some meat to feed you. Here's what I'm trying to say. You can heed the call. Repent and keep the laws if you don't die today. But if you die in sin, can't reset and try again. It was like the scales fell off my eyes. Like, yo, he's talking about me. This whole time he was talking about me. I didn't know. So I have to give you more praise, honor, and glory that's due unto his name. Praise Yah, Yahweh Ba, Shema Mashiach, Yahweh Shah. We let Yahweh reign. All right. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Thanks for coming through and being a part of today's Bible study. We're going to be dealing with Revelations chapters 10 and 11. And also, let's go ahead and get Zephaniah chapter 3 for devotion. Let's go ahead and get that for devotion. If I'm able to be heard and everything is good, okay, my mom's already on it. Mother-in-law Alice Bronson, thank you for the one. She put a one in the comments. If you can hear me in YouTube land, put a one in the comments. But we're going to go ahead and take off. Zephaniah chapter 3. We're going to go ahead and read this for a devotion and also a precursor into what we're getting into in Revelations chapters 10 and 11. Okay. Talking about the seventh trumpet sounds and more things being revealed, so on and so forth. Thanks, Brother Emmanuel Bronson. Okay, I can be heard. Brother Chick says he can hear me in YouTube land. We're good to go. All right, so let's go ahead and get it. Zephaniah chapter 3 says, woe to her who is rebellious and defiled and the oppressing city. She did not obey the voice. She did not accept instruction. She did not trust in Yahweh. She did not draw near to her Elohim. Her rulers in her midst are roaring lions. Her judges are evening wolves. They shall leave no bone until morning. Her prophets are reckless, treacherous men. Her priests have profaned the set-apart place. They have done violence to the Torah. Yahweh is righteous in her midst. He does no unrighteousness. Morning by morning, he brings his right ruling to light. It has not been lacking.
yet the unrighteous one knows no shame. I have cut off nations. Their corner towers are in ruins. I have made their streets deserted, with no one passing by. Their cities are destroyed without man, without inhabitant. I have said, only fear me, accept instruction, and her dwelling would not be cut off. All that I have appointed for her. But they, Salakia, but they rose up early. They corrupted all their deeds. Therefore, wait for me, declares Yahweh, until the day I rise up for plunder. For my judgment is to gather nations, to assemble kingdoms, to pour out on them my rage, all my burning wrath. For by the fire of my jealousy all the earth shall be consumed. For then I shall turn unto a people of clean lips, so that they call on the name of Yahweh to serve him with one shoulder. From beyond the rivers of Cush, my worshippers, the daughter of my desired ones, shall bring my offering. In that day you shall not be put to shame for any of your deeds in which you have transgressed against me. For then I shall remove from your midst your proud, exalting ones, and you shall no more be haughty in my set apart mountain. But I shall leave in your midst an oppressed and poor people, and they shall trust in the name of Yahweh. The remnant of Israel shall do no unrighteousness and speak no falsehood, nor is a tongue of deceit found in their mouth. For they shall feed the flocks and lie down, with no one to frighten them. Shout for joy, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O Israel. Be glad and rejoice with all your heart, O daughter of Jerusalem. Yahweh has turned aside your judgment. He has faced your enemies. The King of Israel, Yahweh, is in your midst. No longer need you fear evil. In that day it shall be said to Jerusalem, do not fear, Zion. Do not let your hands be weak. Yahweh your Elohim in your midst is mighty to save. He rejoices over you with joy. He is silent in his love. He rejoices over you with singing. I shall gather those who grieve about the appointed time, who are among you, to whom its reproach is a burden. See, I am dealing with all those afflicting you at that time, and I shall save the lame and gather those who were cast out, and I shall give them for a praise and for a name in all the earth where they were put to shame. At that time I shall bring you in, even at the time I gather you, for I shall give you for a name and for a praise among all the people of the earth when I turn back your captivity before your eyes, said Yahweh. All right, the Most High's word already blessed, and we are about to go ahead and get in it. Let's go ahead and switch our screen share a little bit, get us to the PowerPoint. All right. And we have it, Revelations chapters 10 and 11. And before we actually get into Revelations chapters 10 and 11, we're going to do a brief review. Let's review a little bit. All right, see what we discussed already. Who remembers what took place so far as it pertains to John's revelations up to this point? All right, starting in basically chapters 5 through 9. Right. Point is, we don't want to be forgetful hearers. All right, so let us just recap a little bit. In chapter 5, all right, we had the precept of Matthew's chapter 5 and verse 17. Remember when he says, think not that I've come to destroy the law. I have not come to destroy, but to fulfill. We see in Revelations chapter 5 the fulfillment of, or what he meant in Matthew's 5 and 17. So no one in heaven or in earth was found worthy to open the scrolls except for the Lamb that was slain. Correct? All right. When we jumped into chapter 6, all right, we had the 144,000 sealed, the 12,000 from each tribe. All right. The number of the martyred saints, we also went into that. In chapter 6, the first 4 seals were released. Remember that? The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The white horse with the crown and the bow was sent out, overcoming and to overcome. The red horse with the sword was sent to take peace from the earth. and that they should slay one another, so on and so forth, giving us the prophecy when Christ was asked, what would the end of the day be like? He's talking about nation shall rise up against nation, right? We see the fulfilling of that. The black horse holding the scales in his hand, sent to judge, basically in a nutshell. Then we had the pale horse whose name was death, and hell followed with him, right? All right. Now jumping into the when we're dealing with the fifth seal, all right. Let me scroll back. The pale horse's name. Oh, we read that. I'll say. All right. It says, and I looked and I saw the green horse, and he who sat on it was death, and Sheol followed him. All right. And authority was given to them over a fourth of the earth to kill with the sword and with hunger and with death and by the beast of the earth. Right. So we had the fifth seal. All right. Beneath the slaughter place, the beings, those who were slaughtered for the word of the Most High, and who were crying out for revenge. They were asking, when are you going to avenge us, so on and so forth. I need to fix my banners just a little bit. All right. Then we had the sixth seal when it came to great earthquake. Remember that? The sun went black and the moon became as blood. All right. Heaven departed like a scroll, rolled up like a scroll. The people sought to try and hide themselves in the rocks. Okay. Right. And that's when he was talking about, and it said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him who is sitting on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb, because of the great day of his wrath has come, and who is able to stand. Right. When we jumped into chapter 7, we had the seventh seal open. Remember, it was the precursor for all of those things that was getting ready to happen. We had the four angels who stood on the four corners of the earth, who were told not to harm the earth until the Most High servants were sealed. Right? Remember that part with the name of Yah on their foreheads. Okay. Then it brought us back to who were basically sealed. Remember, the 144,000 were sealed, the 12,000 from each tribe, except for the tribe of Dan. We didn't go into that in great detail, but that was pretty much what we covered. We had the great crowd, of course, too many who were able to be counted. They were dressed in the white robes. Okay. All praises to the Most High. We also covered the angels, the 24 elders, and the four creatures that fell down and worshiped the Most High and his Son. Remember that. Then we got into chapter 8, right? We jumped into chapter 8, and chapter 8 dealt with the two more trumpets that were sounded, right? But first, when we got into chapter 8, that's when we had loosened the seventh seal. Remember? We loosened the seventh seal, and it was silence for half an hour. The seven angels with the seven trumpets were then revealed. All right, dealing with these numbers and symbolism, and then also the angel with the golden censer with the prayers. All right, went up. The prayers went up in a puff of smoke, so on and so forth, and he threw the censer down to earth. Right. All right. One of the four angels sounded their trumpets and brought forth the first few waves of the Most High's judgment. All right. That's when we was talking about, and I looked and I heard the eagle flying in mid-heaven, crying with a loud voice, woe, woe to those dwelling on the earth, because of the remaining blast of the trumpet out of the three messengers who are about to sound. Right. It was bad. It was about to get worse. Then we jumped into chapter 9, right, where it talked about the fifth and the sixth angels sounded their trumpets. The fifth angel, the fifth star, it says, the fifth trumpet, star from heaven fell to the earth with the keys to the pit of hell, releasing the locusts, all right, who had tails like a scorpion. They were only to harm those who did not possess the seal of the Most High on their forehead. Okay, they were not to kill them, but to torture them for 5 months. People wanted to die, but remember, the Most High wouldn't let them die. Then we had the sixth trumpet, where released the four angels who were in prison on the river Euphrates. Remember that part? All right, who were prepared for the hour, day, month, year, for that very time and purpose. They had an army of 2 million or 200 million. Remember that? Riding behind them, and they were sent to kill off 1/3 of mankind. Those who were not killed, remember, they still did not repent. They were still doing evil, so on and so forth. All right. So with that being the case, that's our little review. Hopefully you're not a forgetful hearer. We'll do that from time to time to make sure we're you know what I'm saying, making sure that we're actually retaining information. All right. It does no good to sit up and hear a lesson and then walk away and have, you know what I'm saying, have no memory of it, have no lasting effect. That's, you want that, go to church, right? Pastor's messages go through you like water. Speaking of which, I need some water. All right, let's get into it. Revelations chapter 10. Let's go ahead and get started. This chapter is an introduction to the latter part of the prophecies in this book. Okay. Whether what is contained between this and the sounding of the seventh trumpet, okay, when we get into chapter 11 and verse 15, it says it be a distinct prophecy from the other, or only a more general account of some of the principal things included in the other. It is disputed by our curious inquirers into these abstruse writings. And remember, we was talking about not to get so caught up in the details you missed the point. That's why we kind of like glance over a little bit of the details of what something looks like, because that throws people. All right. But however, all right. All right. So let's get it. Let me go ahead and open that scripture so I can read along with the PowerPoints so we can stay current. All right. Dealing with Revelations chapter 10, right? Let's go ahead. And it says, and I saw another strong messenger coming down from heaven, robed in a cloud and a rainbow on his head. And his face was like the sun, and his feet was like columns of fire. And having in his hand a little book opened, and he placed his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land. All right. And he cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. And when he cried out, seven thunders spoke their sounds. All right. So we have a remarkable description of a very glorious angel, right? A mighty angel with an open book in his hand. All right. Verse 4 says, and when the seven thunders spoke their sounds, I was about to write. But I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up what the seven thunders spoke. Do not write them. All right. So it's an account of the seven thunders, which the apostle heard as echoing to the voice of the angel, right? What the angel was reading, they was basically echoing it, right? And John was, you know what I'm saying, giving the instruction not to write it and communicating the discoveries. All right, yeah, we said that. So jumping down to verses 5, we're going to go ahead and read through 7. It says, and the messenger whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land lifted up his right hand to heaven, right? And swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created the heaven and what is in it, the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it, that there shall be no further delay. It's time, right? Time's up. But in the days of my sounding of the seventh, in the days of the sounding of the seventh messenger, when he is about to sound, the secret of Elohim shall also be ended, as he declared to his servant, the prophet. All right. So he's basically given a solemn oath, right? The one who had the book in his hand, basically. Let's keep reading. Let's go down to 11. Let's start at verse 8, go down to 11. It says, and the voice which I heard out of heaven spoke to me again and said, go, take the little book from which is open in the hand of the messenger standing on the sea and on the earth. And I went to the messenger and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take and eat it, and it shall make your mouth or make your stomach bitter, but it shall be as sweet as honey in your mouth. That's dope. That's a dope concept, because don't you understand that's how the word works, right? It's a hard saying, you know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, being taught the scriptures and being taught out of the tradition that we grew up in, okay, was a hard saying, and it's a hard saying for a lot of people today, all right, who assume that they're going to heaven because, you know, they took Jesus as their personal Lord and Savior, but didn't repent and did not keep any law, statutes, and commandments. What we teach is a hard saying, all right, but understand, he says it is it's bitter to your stomach, okay, but it's as sweet as honey in thy mouth. But when I had eaten it, my stomach was made bitter. All right. And he said to me, you have to prophesy again concerning many peoples and nations and tongues and kingdoms. All right. So the charge is given to John the Revelator. All right. And okay, and observed by him. Right. So let's go ahead and get into it. I think that's all the notes I have on that. All right. We just read all of that. Right. We read all of that. Here we have an account of another vision dealing with the first three verses. We have an account of another vision the apostle was favored with, right? Between the sounding of the sixth trumpet and that of the seventh. And we observed one, the person who was principally concerned in communicating this discovery to John was an angel from heaven, another mighty angel, okay, uh, who some believe to be Christ Yahushua. You know what I'm saying? That's up for debate or whatever. That's one of those things we won't know till we get there. All right. Um, Number one, he was clothed with what? With a cloud. He veils his glory, all right, which is too great for mortality to behold. Okay, too great for anybody to really be able to understand what's going on. And he has the rainbow upon his head, right? And what does that rainbow signifies? The rainbow on his head signifies what? What did the Most High use the rainbow for? Right. It was a covenant. All right. He's always mindful of his covenant. Now, if the LGBT community see that, what you call it, they're gonna think, you know what I'm saying, God is on our side, right? All that confusion. No, that rainbow on his head means that he's mindful of his covenant. Okay. And when his conduct is most mysterious, yet it is perfectly just and faithful. Right. Number three, his face was like the sun, all bright and full of luster and majesty. Okay, same as what we get from Revelations chapter 1 and 16 when it describes how Christ looked, right? His feet were as pillars of fire. All his ways, both grace and providence, are pure and steady, right? This is giving you a description of the mighty angel, right? He has an awful voice like thunder. When he speaks, it's like thunder. All right. He cried aloud as when a lion roars in verse 3. And his awful voice was echoed by seven thunders, seven solemn and terrible ways of discovering the mind of Elohim, right? Then John was basically told to keep the cat in the bag, right? Don't utter what the seven thunders have revealed, okay? We already read all of that. Uh, the prohibition was given to John the Revelator, all right, that he should not publish but conceal what he had learned from the seven thunders. The apostle was for preserving and publishing everything that he saw and heard in these visions, but the time had not yet come. Remember, John was told to write. In the beginning, he was told to write these revelations down, for they are true. All right. But that same thing the Most High did with who? Remember? Daniel. He did the same thing with Daniel in Daniel's chapter 12 and verse 4, right? Is when the Most High tells Daniel to close up the books. But he says, in the last days, knowledge shall what? Increase. Correct. Um, verses 8 through 10. All right. We have here where a strict charge is given to John, right? What was it? It was that he should go, take the little book out of the hand of the angel, as mentioned before, and this charge was given not by the angel himself who stood upon the earth and the land and the water, right? But by the same voice from heaven that in the fourth verse had laying an injunction upon him not to write, okay? Not to write it, right? So he's being given these instructions, so on and so forth, to go take the book, all right? And to eat the book, right? He's supposed to eat the book. This part of the charge was given by the angel himself, hinting that the apostle, that before he should publish what he had discovered, he must more thoroughly digest the predictions and be in himself suitably affected by them. Okay, so that's when he's eating the book of this word. It's almost like being told to go hurt somebody's feelings. You see what I'm saying? You know that this word that you're about to say is right and it's just because it's coming from the Most High. But people have been lied to so long that when you utter these words, when you speak these truths, they're not going to be able to accept it, right? We are living proof to that to this day. You try to tell somebody who goes to Sunday church what thus saith the Bible, not you, right? These ain't your words, okay? But at the end of the day, these words were going to affect him first, so he can thoroughly be, you know what I'm saying, uh, invested into the giving of this word, right? When he's to write down these revelations, right? Um, where I'm at, an account of the taste and relish which this little book would have when John the Revelator had taken it in. At first, while in his mouth it was sweet. Okay. Okay. All persons feel the pleasure in looking into future events and having them foretold. Says, and all good men love to receive a word from Elohim of what import soever, of what importance whatsoever it be, right? But when this book of prophecy was more thoroughly digested by the apostle, by John, the contents would be bitter. These were things so awful and terrible, such grievous persecutions of the people of Elohim, and such desolation made in the earth that the foresight and foreknowledge of them would not be pleasant, right? Those things, because it's one thing to be like, yo, yeah, we're going to be saved in the last day. But then it's another thing to be told all the terrible atrocities that have to take place to even get us to that point. You see what I'm saying? I think that concept is really dope. And remember, it was the same thing. It was the same way in Ezekiel's prophecy, right? When he told him in chapter 3 and verse 3. Matter of fact, let's look at that real quick. Let's get Ezekiel chapter 3 and look at verse 3. The third verse, it says, and he said to me, Son of man, feed your stomach and fill your stomach with the scroll that I am giving you. And I ate it, and it was sweet as honey in my mouth. All right. The apostle, and looking down at verse 10, and verse 10, when he's talking about, and I took the little book out of the angel's hand and ate it up. All right. He says, the apostle's discharge of the duty he was called to. All right. In verse 10, he took the little book out of the angel's hand, ate it up, and found the relish to be as told him. All right. The first part is it becomes the servant of Elohim to digest in their own souls the message that he brings to others in his name. All right. So it's almost like saying, yes, you're the messenger, so to speak. But at the end of the day, you're not just preaching to other people, you're preaching to yourself as well. You see what I'm saying? It's almost like when you I remember being in church and I would give a message, and this, people had a habit of preaching my message back at me as if the Most High didn't already deal with me when he was giving me the message to, you know what I'm saying? It's already been swallowed by me. I've already been affected. This word has already encouraged and directed and instructed me. Now it's my turn to give you the word. All right. So that's the same. It's the same thing. He just had to be committed with it. Basically, it becomes to them to deliver every message with which they are charged, whether pleasing or unpleasing to men. Right. That's why we say all the time, we didn't write it. It's not our message. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. The Most High said not to do that. He said to honor the Sabbath day. You know what I'm saying? But you want to do you. I didn't write it. That which is least pleasing may be most profitable. However, Elohim's messengers must not keep back any part of the counsel of Elohim. All right. Like Usher said, if I got to tell it, I got to tell it all. All right. Dealing with Jacob's trouble, Jeremiah chapter 30 and 7. All right. This is pretty much what we're dealing with. That's why it was important to go into Zephaniah. All right. Chapter 3, you know what I'm saying, as a devotion, because it was a precursor. All of these things going on in Revelations, if you're stuck in religion, you'll miss it. Okay. You'll miss it. The Most High is dealing with his people. That's why it was important to establish the 144,000 who were sealed. Remember that part. And then the 12,000 from each tribe And then those who were the unnumerable ones under the altar of Elohim, who were dressed in the white robes. It also gave a description of who those people are. All right. Because they were crying out for revenge. And he told them to hold on until your brothers, all right, who are killed like you were killed, uh, um, be gathered, so on and so forth. So that'll be the conclusion of chapter 10. The apostle, basically, John the Revelator, was made to know that this book of prophecy, which he had now taken in, was not given him merely to gratify his own curiosity, as if, okay, because some people assume when they gain some type of knowledge, so on and so forth, that they don't speak what they know out of fear of offending people, or they'll give part of it, the part that they think the person can digest without being offended, or that, or whatever. No, you got to give it to them straight, right? So it says, which he, it wasn't given to him to gratify his own curiosity or to affect him with pleasure or pain, but to be communicated by him to the world. Here, his prophetical commission seems to be renewed, and he is ordered to prepare for another embassy to convey those declarations of the mind and will of Elohim, which are of great importance to all the world and to the highest and greatest men in the world, and such should be read and recorded in many languages. This indeed is the case. We have them in our language. We have the word of Elohim in our language, all right, and we're obligated to attend to them, all right. We, in our developing our understanding, we humbly inquire to the meaning of everything that we invest our walk in, all right. If we're doing something that is contrary to the word, we want to know. Okay. So we use the word to, like the scripture said, direct our paths. Right. So let's go. Let's keep it moving. Let's jump into chapter 11 now. Chapter 11 is very interesting. Right. Chapter 11 is very interesting. Number one, we have the measuring reed. Okay. Given to the apostle to take the dimensions of the temple. All right. Then we have the two witnesses of the Most High. All right. Then we have the sounding of the seventh trumpet and what is followed upon it. All right. As a precursor, let's go ahead and get Psalm chapter 118. Let's get Psalms chapter 118, looking at verses 10 through 16. Check this out before we even get into the two witnesses. Psalms chapter 118 and verse 10, it says, all the nations surrounded me, in the name of Yahweh shall cut them off. All right. They surrounded me. Yes, they surrounded me. In the name of Yahweh shall I cut them off. They surrounded me like bees. They were extinguished like the burning thorns. In the name of Yahweh shall cut them off. Pushing the enemy pushed me to fall, but Yahweh helped me. Yah is my strength. And it's like in verse 14, Yah is my strength and song, and he has become my deliverance. The voice of rejoicing and deliverance is in the tents of the righteous. The right hand of Yahweh is doing mightily. All right. It says, and the right hand of Yahweh is exalted. The right hand of Yah acts mightily. All right. In verse 17, it says, let me not die, but live and declare the works of Yah. All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. Revelations chapter 11, verses 1 and 2, it says, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod. All right. And the angel stood, saying, rise and measure the temple of Elohim and the altar and them that worship therein. All right. And that second charge he's given, he says, but the court which is without, all right, the court that is outside, the outer court, he says, leave out and measure it not, for it is given unto the Gentiles and to the holy city, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot for 42 months, right? 42 months. So is there something spiritual being conveyed here by the measuring of the temple and such? All right. Could measure mean judge in a sense, or whether these things be righteous, true, or pure? All right. And are they to be considered contrast to the outer courts, which the heathen will trample underfoot? All right. Understand that even in that description, there's a separation, right? We understand that the wicked are outside and the righteous are inside worshiping. All right. And the only one to be concerned about, he's telling John, is the ones who are righteous, right? Let's get into the third verse. It says, "And I will give power unto my two witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days, clothed in sackcloth," right? "And these are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the Elohim of the earth." All right. So, what are the two Elohims? Let's get Zechariah chapter 4, right? As a precept, let's go ahead and get Zechariah chapter 4, looking at verses 11 through 14. All right. "Then I said to him, what are these two olive trees on the right and on the left of the lampstand? And the second time I answered and said to him, what are these two branches of the olive trees, which are beside the two golden pipes, from which the golden oil is poured out? He said to me, do you not know what these are? I said, no, my Lord. Then he said, these are the two anointed ones who stand by Yahweh of the whole earth." Okay. So Zechariah got to see the two witnesses, so on and so forth, before John the Revelator brings them out in Revelations 11 and 3. All right. All right. So we're going to go ahead and read through 4 through 13. It says, "These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the Elohim of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceedeth out of their mouth and devour their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have the power to shut heaven, and it rain not in the days of their prophecy, and have power over waters to turn them to blood, and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And when they shall have finished their testimony, the beast that ascended out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them, and shall overcome them and kill them. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our master was crucified." Revelations verse 9 says, and they, the people, and the kindreds and tongues and nations shall see their dead bodies 3 days and a half, right? And shall not suffer their dead bodies to be put in graves. And they that dwell upon the earth shall rejoice over them and make merry, and shall send gifts to one another, because these two prophets tormented them that dwell on the earth. And after these days and a half, after Salakia, and after 3 days and a half, the spirit of life from Elohim entered into them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon them which saw them. And they heard a great voice from heaven saying unto them, come up hither. And they ascended up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies beheld them. And the same hour was taken there the great earthquake, Salakia, and the same hour was there a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. And in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were afraid, or were frightened, Salakia, same thing, and gave glory to the Elohim of heaven. All right. So, and I'm pretty sure you understand that. Well, matter of fact, before we move into the whole breaking down the 3.5 days thing, part of what we understand that's going on from Revelations 4 through 13 is that even though this world is wicked, because when we read in Revelations chapter 9, we got to the end of that, we understood that after all of those things the Most High did, the people still did not repent. All right. So now you have the two witnesses telling the truth, right? Giving them the business. And the fact that this truth is coming forward to them, these people are feeling tormented. All right. So basically, these witnesses are doing what they were called to do, what they were appointed to do, but the world is going to blame them for their problems. Right. So they're rejoicing as the beast comes in, you know what I'm saying, and devours or destroys or kills the two witnesses, so on and so forth. They start rejoicing, and then it's a scene that's reminiscent of Christmas, right? These people making merry and sending each other gifts, so on and so forth. Let's celebrate. But at the end of the day, okay, The problem is the fact that these people are unrighteous. But that's almost the same as how people are today when they're basically like, don't judge. Don't judge me, which in a sense means, okay, let me sin in peace, right? These two witnesses were not about to let them sin in peace. Let's get Daniel chapter 12. Let's look at that real quick, verses 5 through 9. Because we always parallel a lot of revelations with Daniel. All right. So just, and I don't think we're going to be in this part of it too long because it's pretty self-explanatory, because numbers are always symbolic in John's vision, right? And Most High is always giving us numbers. Repeated phrases are also important as a way of linking passages together. The same period described in different ways basically is said to be 42 months or 1,260 days or a time and times and a half. All right. We all understand this to simply mean 3.5 days, right? Um, Looking at it from Daniel's viewpoint, chapter 5 through 9, it says, Then I, Daniel, looked and beheld two others stood, one on the bank and one on the stream. Um, and someone said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the stream, How long shall it be to the end of these wonders? And I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the stream. He raised his right hand and his left hand toward heaven and swore by him who lives forever that it will be for a time, times, and a half a time. And that when the shattering of the power of the set apart people comes to an end, all of these things would be finished. I heard, but I did not understand. Then I said, Oh, my Lord, oh, what shall be the outcome of these things? He said, Go your way, Daniel, for the words are shut up and sealed until the time of the end. Right? I love that precept getting us into this whole Revelations. Um, but at the end of the day, we understand it. We understand it mathematically, right? Just a simple breakdown. Daniel is told that the period in which Elohim's people are persecuted and oppressed, the shattering of the power of the holy people, will be for a time, times, and a half a time. All right. The rabbis understood this to mean 3.5, uh, one time plus two times plus one half, so on and so forth, 3.5. Um, each time John uses the phrase 42 months, okay, it's the same thing. Whether he's saying 1,260 days, John makes these same references, basically saying the same thing. So please don't try to interpret the numbers literally. They are symbolic and tied to Old Testament prophecy, like we just saw in Daniel. All right. In essence, this period of 42 months slash 3 days. All right. Uh, um, are all a shorthand way of saying the same thing. All right. The period during the Most High, which the Most High's people will be persecuted and oppressed until the second coming. Right. And then it's also important to understand it from that perspective, because people with a religious mind tend to, you know what I'm saying, not acknowledge the fact that the Most High is talking about gathering his people. All right. All right. And just simply put, as we see how John the Revelator is breaking this whole thing down, we haven't gotten to Revelations chapter 12. That'll be next week. All right. But we understand that the woman fled into the wilderness. All right. And verse 6 says, where she is placed to prepare, where she has a place prepared by Elohim, which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. Right. Same thing. All right. Um, and then tribulation period. That's why it's counted up to 7, because we know that the first half of the tribulation is supposed to be all good, right? Then the latter half is supposed to be all bad, so on and so forth. That's another reason why it's broken down as time, and a time and a half, or 3 days, 3.5 days. All right. So let's get into it. Dealing with the two witnesses. Why 2? All right. 2 is the required number in the Old Testament, for bearing what? True witness, right? The two witnesses will prophesy for 1,260 days. And I kept saying 3.5 days. You know I meant years, right? Salakia. I'm surprised ain't nobody corrected and checked me on that. But you know what I meant. I meant 3.5 years. All right. All right. So the two witnesses will prophesy for 1,260 days, which means we're looking at the same point being made as above in verses 1 and 2. All right. And the symbolic prophetic action, but with different imagery. Right. So they're basically going to have to preach the word in season and out of season for 1,260 days, 3 years, so on and so forth. John is told that the court of Elohim's temple has been given to the nations. Remember, it's going to be trampled. And the set apart city will be trampled by the nations for 42 months. During that period of 42 months, two witnesses will be granted authority to prophesy. They are described as two olive trees and two lampstands and stand before Yahweh of the earth, which we already precept. Okay. And they are described as, I already said that. Both are able to devour their enemies with fire that flows out of their mouths. So whenever they're prophesying and the people come upon them, so on and so forth. All right. The scripture says that they shall, saying that they're able to breathe fire and, saying devour their enemies, basically. All right. Also, they have power over the sky, right? They can do like Elijah and shut up the waters or shut up the sky so it not rain, so on and so forth. They're able to strike the earth with plagues, so on and so forth. After their testimony, okay, the beast overcomes them. Of course, we read that part. And then we already read Psalms 118. But in that 10th and 11th verse, it says, all the nations surrounded me. In the name of Yahweh shall I cut them off. All right. They surrounded me. Yes, they surrounded me. In the name of Yahweh shall I cut them off. Right. In the name of the Most High, they're going to burn their adversaries, so on and so forth. It says in that verse in 16 and 17, it says, the right hand of Yahweh is exalted. The right hand of Yahweh acts mightily. Let me not die, but live, declare the works of Yah. All right. We understand this part as well. Just we're going to scan through this a little bit, but the necessity of the two witnesses we get from Deuteronomy 17 and 6. It says, at the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses shall he that has to die be put to death. Okay. This is exactly why they're there. He is not put to death by the mouth of one witness. In Deuteronomy 19 and 15, it says, one witness does not rise up against a man concerning any crookedness or any sin that he commits. Right. That's why it's necessary the Most High send these two witnesses. At the mouth of 2 witnesses or at the mouth of 3 witnesses, a matter is established. Multiple witnesses to an event establishes the validity. Right. In today's time, you only need one witness to be convicted of a crime in the court of, in the court of law. In that and of itself, that's a corrupt system. A person could be a false witness, okay? Could be talking out of spite or whatever. All right. Or in order to protect the guilty. You see what I'm saying? Who knows? And every false witness won't go unpunished. Bearing false witness is against the commandments, correct? Let's deal with them being expert witnesses. I went too far with that. All right. Why 2? 2 is the required number in the Old Testament for bearing a true witness. Also, when 2 or 3 are gathered in Yahweh's name, there he will be in the midst, which denotes that when the 2 or 3 come together, that they will indeed be witnessing. All right. Indeed, is why the Messiah sent them out, 2 by 2. Remember that? Ecclesiastes chapter 4, in verse 7 through 12, it says, then I looked again at the futility under the sun. There is one without a second, who has neither son nor brother. There is no end to all his labors. His eye also is not satisfied with riches, and for whom I am toiling and depriving myself of good. That too is futility and an evil task. In verse 9, it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, okay, one lifts up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him or to help him up. And this ain't going all the way down. It says in verse, and then verse 11 says also, if two lie down together, they keep warm. But how does one keep warm by himself? Although one might be overpowered, the two withstand him. And a 3-4 code is not easily broken, right? So we have those scriptures. That's the reason why it's important. Um, then also the difference between the prophets and witnesses, so on and so forth. Um, I don't know if I want to get all the way into that. That's really neither here nor there. All right. So by proxy, these witnesses and revelations carry the message of the Most High, as did the prophets. But the difference is that they were present with the Most High and received their message directly from the Most High. Right. That's when we got into the scripture where Ezekiel asked him, "What are these two olive branches?" Right. It tells you that they were the ones that were actually with the Most High. So now in John's revelation, okay, he's revealing that these two witnesses are coming to do what they were assigned to do, right? The time has come. Let's get Isaiah 58 and 1, okay, as another precursor of what they're going to do, okay? Was the Most High tell us in Isaiah 58 and 1, cry loud, spare not, lift up your voice like a trumpet, declare to my people their transgressions and the house of Jacob their sins, right? It's important not to take this revelation or this, or revelations in general, uh, religiously, okay? Because you'll forget that the Most High has promised to redeem who? His people, okay? Out of what? Out of Jacob's trouble, right? And this time of treading down, the Most High has reserved to himself his faithful witnesses who will not fail to attest the truth of his word and worship and the excellency of his ways, okay? That's why, saying we gave you Isaiah 58 and 1, all right? Uh, Let me get some more water. All right. Many will own and acknowledge, all right, Christ in times of prosperity, all right, who will desert and deny him in times of persecution. Okay. You have to understand that that's just how people are. When everything is going good, what I'm saying, they see it one way, but when it's going bad, their attitudes change and switch. That's why they only show up to Sunday church for the feel good message. That's why it's all emotionalism, right? People will acknowledge Christ in times of prosperity, who will desert and deny him in times of persecution. And then we also saw that with his disciples. Remember, one witness, when he calls, uh, when the cause is upon trial, is worth many at other times. Number two says, it is a sufficient number. For in the mouth of two or three witnesses, every cause shall be established. Christ sent out his disciples two by two to preach the gospel. Some think these two witnesses are Enoch and Elias, all right, who are to return to the earth for a time. And I don't get into that debate. Some people, say Enoch and, Elijah, right? Because how they take scriptures when it says the Most High took them. All right, but the Most High will be calling for his people, okay, in the worst of times. So let's not even get into that argument. Um, Another thing about the two witnesses is their habit and posture. They prophesy in sackcloth as those that are deeply affected with the low and distressed state of the Most High's chosen people, being that they will not be partakers in the mark of the beast and will be stricken in poverty, right? Um, how they were supposed how they were supported and supplied during this discharge of their great and hard work. They stood before Elohim of the whole earth, and he gave them power to prophesy. He made them to be like Zerubbabel and Joshua, all right, the two olive trees, the candlesticks in the vision of Zechariah 44, chapter 4 and verse 2, etc. God gave them the oil of the holy zeal or set apart zeal, and courage and strength and comfort. And he made them olive trees, and their lampstands of profession were kept burning by the oil of inward gracious principles, which they received from Elohim. They had oil not only in their lamps, but in their vessels, all right, of spiritual life, light, and zeal, so on and so forth. They were anointed. Um, their security and defense at the time, All right. What was that? It says, if anyone attempted to hurt them, fire proceeded out of their mouth and devoured them. Something this alludes to Elijah's calling for the fire from heaven. Remember when he had that duel on the mountain? He was like, call on your God. All right. But then when it was his turn, he took water and threw it on his altar, and still the Most High, saying, came with the fire. But that's neither here nor there. That's what you'll find in 2 Kings 1 and 12. The Most High promises the prophet Jeremiah and chapter 5 and verse 14. Behold, I will make my words in thy mouth fire, and this people shall be wood, and it shall devour them. By their praying and preaching and courage and suffering, they shall gall and wonder. Salakia, I don't know what's wrong with me today. They shall gall and wound the very hearts of the conscience of many of their persecutors. They shall go away self-condemned and be even terrors to themselves, like Pashur at the words of the prophet Jeremiah in Jeremiah 20 and 4. They shall have that free access to Elohim and that interest in him, that at their prayers Elohim will effect plagues and judgment upon their enemies, as he did on Pharaoh, turning their rivers into blood and restraining the dews of heaven, shutting up heaven, that no rain shall fall for many days, as he did for the prayer of Elisha in 1 Kings 7 and 1. That's what I meant. Elohim has ordained his arrows for the persecutors, and is often plaguing them while they are persecuting his people. They find it hard. Work trying to kick against the pricks, right? And the sad part about it, when you're giving people the truth for the Most High's word, they be like, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. No, it ain't. The truth hurts and it kills you to listen. The two witnesses will be for many their last opportunity to have a change of heart, right? That part is important. Because people misunderstand grace, they misappropriate it, and they think that they always have. They're going to always have it. Okay, but when these two witnesses strike and they start prophesying, so on and so forth, for many, that's going to be their last opportunity to get it right or to have a change of heart. That's why this message is so important. While the heathen, because remember we read in chapter 9, all of those things was going on and they failed to repent. All right. These two witnesses in particular are going to be speaking from their own mouths the doom and destruction that they have seen, which they have witnessed, right, with their own eyes. And the world will simply be left without an excuse. Okay. Remember this, and then we get to this part where it says, after their testimony, the beast overcomes the two witnesses and kills them. For 3.5 days, the people of the earth celebrate the two witnesses' death, who have tormented them. What did they do? Why were you tormented? They're just talking, right? They're just prophesying. Mm-hmm. But they tormented them for 3.5 years. All right. He says, and will not permit the witnesses to be properly buried. So basically, they're going to be killed and left in the street. All right. And then they're going to be left in the street as a sign of victory for the ignorant. Right. It says they arrived in sackcloth, meaning they were destitute, seeing that the beast system has already been in full effect. So they obviously rejected the mark of the beast. And at the end, it was the beast that destroyed them. Right. In verse 9, we was talking about in Revelations 11, verse 9, it says, for 3.5 days, some of the peoples and tribes and languages and nations will gaze at their dead bodies and refuse to let them be placed in a tomb. Right. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them and make merry and exchange presents, because these two prophets had been a torment to those who dwell on the earth. So for 3.5 days, that apocalyptic number again, the people that persecuted the witnesses will perversely rejoice over their deaths. It's a scene of complete depravity, all right, or ignorance. The people who killed these martyrs will congratulate themselves on their murderous victory. That sounds like Christianity to me. Why? Because they were tired of being told to repent. right? The witness's message contradicted the world's self-satisfied delusions and prideful self-sufficiency. It's crazy. But they're going to be what? Resurrected and vindicated, right? Verse 11, it says, but after the 3.5 days, a breath of life from Elohim entered them, and they stood upon their feet, and great fear fell upon those who saw them. Then they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, come up here, right? This is what the Christian world wants Jesus to do. That's why they got the whole Left Behind series and their understanding of the rapture, so on and so forth. Wow. As you know what I'm saying? You persecuted the wrong ones. Then they heard a loud voice saying from heaven, come up here. And they went up to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies watched them. Their enemies watched them. Just as Christ was raised to life after 3 days, so the witnesses will be raised to life after 3.5 days. All right. So we have that number again. And it is obvious to everyone who sees it that Elohim made it happen, thereby providing that they were telling the truth all along. Okay. One of the things that we're going to be vindicated on is the fact that these people, you know what I'm saying, assume that when we speak the scriptures and we let the scriptures, you know what I'm saying, explain the scriptures, and we don't philosophize, you know what I'm saying, out of our own heart, like like Pastor Porkchop. They assume that we're speaking wrong, right? And we're persecuting you because the Most High told you not to eat that pork and that bacon, all right, so on and so forth. He told you to honor the Sabbath day. It's crazy. I'll sit up there and talk to somebody who goes to Sunday church, and I'll ask them like, okay, what's you do know the 10 Commandments, right? It's like, yeah, I know the 10 Commandments. Well, let's hear them. Can't even name them. And if you can name them, you know what I'm saying, they can't name them in order. That's not important. The point is, do you know them? All right. So I'm like, okay, well, what's the fourth one? What's the fourth commandment? Honor the Sabbath day. Keep it holy. Tells you not to work on the Sabbath day. But it's funny how you go to church every Sunday and it's you act like that's the first time you ever heard that. It's crazy. It's crazy. But at the end of the day, these people were telling the truth. These people were telling the truth. That's why we say don't sit up there and philosophize the Most High's word. Get it in writing. Did he say you can do those things? Right? Mostly everything that we have to address in this life is addressed in the scriptures. Okay? Are we to do that? Is there ceremonial law, a dietary law, sacrificial law? All right. All of these, so on and so forth. Are they still applicable today? I don't know what's wrong with my talking. I'm mouth dry. Right? But are they? The answer would be yes. If Christ forgave you for your sins, guess what sin is? The transgression of the law. Right? If Christ says that he's going to tell the lawless to depart from me, you who work lawlessness, so on and so forth, then having no law is a bad thing. Right? It is what it is. That truth will be revealed. That truth will be revealed and will be vindicated just like these witnesses. All right. And in verse 13, it says, dealing about the conversion of the nations, it says, and at that hour there was a great earthquake, and a tenth of the city fell. 7,000 people were killed in the earthquake, and the rest were terrified and gave glory to the Elohim of heaven. The majority of the city repents and gives glory to Elohim. Previously, John has told us that the judgments do not produce repentance. Remember, we saw that in last week's Bible study in chapter 9, verses 20 and 21. But here, the martyrdom of the two witnesses produces the amazing result of repentant nations. All right. And not necessarily repentant nations, but those, we already know when the scriptures talk about repentant nations, the fact that the Most High's chosen people were scattered to all nations is why that's always referenced that way. All right. So we have to see it for what it is. We're at the conclusion. We're at the conclusion. But at the end of the day, can we accept revelations, hence all the replacement theology Yes, we can. All we have to do is put everything back in its proper context because we're dealing with Jacob's trouble. We're dealing with Jacob's trouble. So we are at the conclusion. It says, when does Jacob's trouble end? When the Most High delivers him out of it. So all of the sealing we saw going on in previous chapters points to that time. And when the two witnesses come to prophesy, it will be the last opportunity for many. Right? So John the Revelator is made to know that this book of prophecy, which he has now taken in, was not given him merely to gratify his own curiosity. All right, we said that, or to affect him with pleasure or pain, but to be communicated uh, uh, by him to the world. All right, he's to basically take this thing personal because it's a true witness. So that being the case, that's all I got as far as the slides. Brother Chick, come in and give us some wisdom, fam. Good to see you.
Good to see you, bro. Shabbat Shalom. This is a true class, man. True class. I really appreciate it and enjoy it. We don't always get that on videos we watch. Sometimes you just get people philosophizing. This is a true class, man. I look forward to it weekly. Just to comment on what really stood out that you spoke on from some personal experiences I recently had, just on, being able to speak to others and try to help others get it and try to bring others the truth. I'm one of those people that get real nervous when I talk to people about the Most High because I know it can go any way, and I'm worried that I deliver what I want to say the right way the Most High would intend. I'm worried that if this person offends me, will I lose my temper and let my ego take over and ruin the whole conversation? I'm always nervous, but I'll say this: why I continue to do it and how I got some encouragement this past week. I think it was a couple months ago on here. I have a conversation with a person and they just attacked to the point where I just completely shut the whole situation down. Like, yeah, we're not going to be, we're not going to be able to be in each other's presence. This just ain't going to work out. But earlier this week, I had a conversation with a person and we were just trying to lean on me. We were kind of sharing things about things we've been through. And they brought up, just like, and they did it really well. Like, I don't want to offend you, but I have to ask for, I'm used to people who are spirit. She kept saying religious, but I kept correcting her because, like, I really don't like that word, and I explained why. But she's like, I don't understand when people have actually been through things, how do they still have that type of faith and belief? And it turned to a real good conversation. And the more I talked, the more that person went about. I'm not trying to defend. I really want to understand. And two things came out of that for me. One, it let me know that there are still people out there that really understand. They're in a place where the stuff they've been through it's just hard for them. This person, like, I grew up a Catholic and this is how it was used against me. I was like, I get it. That's, one of the worst ones, so I get it. And I enjoyed it. And I kept telling this person, I'm enjoying this conversation. You're not offending me. Let's keep going. You know what I'm saying? So that's the one thing it gave. It gave me that I'm going to keep doing this because there are people who want to know. I'm not saying that person is like changed now. I don't believe that at all. I believe it's going to take a lot more conversations and it's going to take the Most High, speaking to her. I can't wake that person up, but I want to help. But two, what it did for me, he realized that you can separate people really quick through that conversation. Like I said, that person I talked 2 months ago, right away, I could feel it. I could feel it in my gut. Like, oh, this ain't gonna go well. Like, this person, their whole demeanor is changing. What's ever inside them is trying to attack me. Like, yeah, I got to get away from this person. You know what I'm saying? But this week, I was able to learn this person is genuine. I don't know if they'll ever come to, the truth that we believe in. But I know that person is trying. I know I want to help. I know it's somebody, like, I'm gonna keep checking in on this person because that was a real genuine conversation. I went home thinking more things I could say. I went home thinking I could do better at this, do better at that. But I went home with, like, hope in my heart. You know what I'm saying? It made me feel good. And it pointed out to me what you brought up, the perspective of how the people who have the most trouble, they blame God for the bad and take credit for the good. Her question was like, with you, is like, you don't give yourself any credit for the good, the stuff you got through. You give it all to the Most High. And I'm like, yeah, because there's no reason that I should have been I've seen other people that have gone through similar things, and they didn't turn out so well. But I'm still here. I'm still smiling. You know what I'm saying? I still thriving. That's the perspective that we have to fight against. Is there's a group of people that they want to blame the Most High for the bad and accept all the glory for the good. And we have to find a way. We have to make sure, for one, we don't do that. But two, we have to find a way to get them to flip that perspective, because the world puts that onto them. You know, God did the bad. They don't blame people for the bad, because that was my whole thing. I blame people for the bad stuff. The Most High is the one that pulled me through it. So I brought that to say I got a lot out of that, and I'm going to continue, even though it scares me sometimes when I go in this conversation. True fear, because I don't want to mess that conversation up, because it's an important conversation, and I never want to feel like I was a part of pushing them away. So I just wanted to add that, because that's what kept coming into my mind as you spoke. But again, this is a real class, bro, and I'm enjoying it, and I look forward to it every week.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I felt myself stumbling through this whole thing. It's a lot of information, um, and I'm glad you received it. I'm glad you received it, fam. Brother, and same thing. Brother Emmanuel says, I find some Christians I talk to do not want to understand. Yeah, don't know and don't want to know. You know, that's the bad part about it. But at the end of the day, I love how the Most High vindicated the two witnesses. That's a pertinent tale right there, that it doesn't matter. You have to be faithful unto death. We also got that message in Revelations. Be faithful unto death. And you know what I'm saying? It's not our word. Okay. The Most High just told us to communicate it. But we appreciate you, bro. And it can be hard trying not to offend people. And me myself, I find myself more recently not speaking of certain topics, so on and so forth, to certain people. Um, I feel a lot of people have had their opportunity to have dialogue, so on and so forth, with me, um, but you know, decline for various reasons. So, in some sense, I've shaken the dust. I'm not going to keep trying to bother you with this. You've made your choice, but at the end of the day, um, if we're going to believe the Most High Yah, right? We're going to take everything in the same vein as Joshua, right? When he says, "As for me and my house," right? We're going to worship the Most High Yah. So we take it with that same vein, and regardless of how you feel about me personally, that's not going to affect the fact that I'm still going to tell you the truth. Okay, I'm going to tell the truth whether it fills the room or clears it out. 9 times out of 10, it clears out the room, right? I had a brother tell me that he's glad that I don't have a big following. Well, at the end of the day, me too. That's a lot of pressure. You know what I'm saying? Part of it with me is I don't like that kind of attention and that kind of pressure, anyways. But the other part is that's also fulfilling scripture, right? Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many be thereat. But small is the gate, narrow is the road that leads to life, and very few. All right, find it. That's the road I want to be on. Okay, and I don't want to keep talking about myself, but I definitely understand exactly what Brother Chick is talking about, because and Brother Romano, for that matter, because we want to get this message, and if we could make you accept it, or if we could make you, you know what I'm saying, we probably would. You know, we love you. That's the reason we're telling you. You know, we want to snatch you from the fire. If there was a car, you standing in the street, and there's a car coming, you know what I'm saying? I'll run and push you out the way, right? But and running and pushing them out of the way, you know what I'm saying? Ouch! Why you push me? You know, it is what it is. That being the case, like uh, Brother Chick said, man, we just gonna keep doing it, doing what the Most High said to do. We're gonna cry loud, spare not, right? Um, we're going to go ahead and get up out of here. The Most High willing, we'll be coming in Revelation chapter 12. I think we're just in 12. I don't know if I'm connecting two chapters with that. I think we have a lot to deal with in chapter 12. So the Most High willing, we'll be back next Shabbat, same time. If you can, shoot through. If you haven't already, go to my YouTube, you know what I'm saying, and subscribe. like and share. We want to grow that platform as well. Um, and oh yeah, let me get some shout outs before we get up out of here. Brother Chick, as always, Shabbat Shalom. Brother Jason Jackson, Shabbat Shalom to you. Brother Eugene Sewell, good to see you, fam. Um, my cousin Dion Goodwin, Shabbat Shalom. Nicole, um, Shiata Yisrael, Shabbat Shalom. My sister Yasatari De La Paz, Shabbat Shalom to you as well. Um, Sister Shanique Cameron, Shabbat Shalom. Brother and Sister Alice Bronson, Romanian and Alice Bronson, Shabbat Shalom. And everybody that I can't see, we ask that you just continue to enjoy the rest of your Shabbat. Get the Most High all praise, honor, and glory that's due unto his name. And the Most High willing, we'll be back next Shabbat. All right. Enjoy the rest of your Shabbat, everybody. Shabbat Shalom.